Good evening, and welcome to my commentary for Jurassic World Rebirth. It's tradition on the Terradome channel for me to do my own personal commentaries for these movies because I like doing it. It's something I think is quite fun to do for myself, and I don't know if it's fun for you guys to sync up your DVDs and listen along with me as I prattle on by myself watching these films. Um, but yeah, I figured it's about time I do one for Jurassic World Rebirth, and so here we are. I've got the 4K version in my Blu-ray player at the moment. It's on the menu, which is looping round. I'll let you know when I press play in a minute, and then you can sync up if you like to watch along with me. Um, but yeah, it came out quite a while ago now, and I finally got round to sitting down and recording this. I do like to give it a little bit of time after the films come out, that way the dust can settle. I've got the Blu-ray as I've mentioned, so I've watched it a number of times, and behind the scenes things come out over the period of time. And like all Jurassic films, we don't learn everything from the Blu-rays. There's so much information out there, but I do like to let the dust settle a bit, so when I do these commentaries I have more than just the initial thoughts to go over, and hopefully I'll bring some interesting tidbits to this commentary. Um, the main thing I want to say before I press play is this film was very special to me, mainly because for those of you that know, I helped work on the marketing and the canon consultation for the previous three movies before this one. So Colin Trevorrow, writer and director Colin Trevorrow brought myself and a team of other fans on to actually work on official materials for the previous three movies: Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, and Dominion. Um, and obviously, being a huge Jurassic fan since I was a kid in the early 90s and growing up with these films, obviously that opportunity was insane and amazing. But the thing is, obviously, I got to know what those films were going to be about well in advance of actually seeing them. So as a fan, I had to be like, well, you know, we're working on it officially, so I'm going to get spoilt to high heaven. What was special about Jurassic World Rebirth for me as a fan was this was the first film since Jurassic Park 3 in 2001, and I think I was about 12 when that film came out. It was since that film that I was going into a Jurassic Park movie not knowing anything about what the story was going to entail. So, God, what was it, like 21 years or something crazy like that? Um, 24 years since I went to go to the cinema to watch a Jurassic movie and not know what to expect. So Jurassic World Rebirth, despite flaws, and things that I think this film has, like all the Jurassic movies really, but despite all that, this one will always hold a special place in my heart because it really felt like it was like going in as a complete fan again. I wasn't working on it officially or anything. I didn't know things going in before. So it was really nice to step back into like that sort of childhood excitement and go, oh yeah, the new Jurassic Park's out. I don't know what to expect, and then go into the cinema and watch it for the first time. So that's something I just wanted to get off my chest first before pressing play. But let's press play. Let's get into it. I've prattled on for nearly 5 minutes now. Let's do it. So I'm pressing play on the menu screen in three, two. Oh wait, it's actually gone to the Universal logo. We don't want that. Right. Okay. The menu's back. Right, here we go. Get your Blu-rays and that synced up. I won't tease you anymore. Three, two, one, play. It's now loading. And I am seeing the Universal logo is now just faded in. So yeah, this film, Gareth Edwards directed it. I'm a big fan of Gareth Edwards. I thought he did an absolutely stellar job with Godzilla 2014. Um, And the only issue I had with Godzilla 2014 genuinely was the lighting during the climactic battle at the end of that film. And I thought it was way too dark, and it could have been lit in a way that made you actually see what was going on a lot better. So going into this film, I was genuinely worried. The only genuine worry I had was, are the night shots going to be really visible? But obviously he shot those. previous films like Godzilla and all his other films in on digital, whereas this was on film, so it had a different grade to it, and luckily all the night shots look gorgeous. I mean, this film is utterly gorgeous to look at. So the film opens 17 years ago. Um, you're probably going to get a big rant from me in a few minutes about the timeline that this film presents, because that is my biggest issue with this film. And I don't want to start it with a negative, so I'll get onto that in a minute. But we see this InGen helicopter flying over this mysterious island. Um, we just saw some CGI monkeys looking. There's a lot of CGI in this film, but I think it works. There are times when you see some of the behind the scenes stuff, like the plates they shot. It's like, yeah, you should have just kept that not CG. But the CGI for the most part in this film is absolutely insanely good. Now that InGen helicopter that landing, I always wish that was the InGen helicopter that we see Hoskins' team arriving to Isla Nublar in Jurassic World, because I think that would have been a really cool tie-in to the hybrid aspect, which we're seeing here, where they're testing on this island on Site C, and Ile Saint Hubert. As we see here, it says hybrid mutadon. They're testing for the hybrids, and we hear characters saying, they're crossbreeding species and all that. I thought it'd have been really cool if we saw that green helicopter, that militarized green helicopter from Jurassic World Land, because we never see who gets out of that classic InGen helicopter, and it comes across as a real. It's just a fan servicey thing, right? It's like, oh, remember that helicopter from Jurassic Park? The silver and blue one, the InGen one. And it's like, yes, but if you'd done the military green version from Jurassic World, it would have been fan service, but it still would have been the audience would have got it because it looks like the classic Jurassic helicopter, because it is. Um, but it would have actually narratively tied into the hybrid story and InGen's relationship to hybrids from Jurassic World with Hoskins. And we wouldn't have even need to see him step out of the helicopter. But anyway, so yes, we see this Snickers wrapper going into the door, into the vent, and causing it to jam open in this very futuristic looking laboratory, and the doors are all failing. So it has to, like, the one door stayed open, and I believe I've paused it and read all that system. Is basically the system didn't know what to do because of the door, so it reboots, but because it's rebooting, it causes the things to all pause basically. So that's what allows the distorters to get loose. We see the lab's going to lock down. Safety first. 9 days since the previous incident. This is actually, I want to say, the first time in the Jurassic series we've got a sort of prequel-esque um, moment. As in, like, this film starts off. I'm just trying to think back now. Oh no, actually, I tell a lie. Jurassic World Dominion opened up 65 million years ago, and you can't get any more prequel than that. So this is the second time that we've traveled further back from where we previously were to see something happen. This is our introduction to the Distorted Rex. Poor guy behind the glass. I love this shot when it like tips him upside down and then looks at him. And I think that's my favorite shot of the Distortus in the whole film, because it looks so much like a xenomorph in that shot, and I'm a big Alien fan, so it just you know it just makes me smile. I love this red smoky logo, and I also like the juxtaposition between, like, the ending of Jurassic World or the beginning of Jurassic World Dominion. Sorry, the logo flies towards the camera and goes over us, and then this one opens up and it zooms out. Present day. I'm going to read this. It's been 32 years since the dinosaurs returned. No, it hasn't. That's wrong. But the modern climate and disease have taken their toll, and public interest has waned. I read it like Lance Hendrickson. Most surviving species now only thrive in a tropical band around the equator. Human travel there is expressly forbidden. So obviously, people who know me, but if you're listening to this and you don't know me, my biggest gripe with this film, out of all of the things, is the fact that it says 32 years ago the dinosaurs returned, because that's not true. Because the timeline, I want to get into it, but I don't want to talk over all the other stuff. But the timelines and the dates in this film are so messed up, and it's really annoying that they don't commit to just expressly saying when things are. Like they say 32 years ago the dinosaurs returned, but the opening said 17 years ago, and then it said present day, but it's like, but you don't tell us a date anywhere. So it just messes up the, like, where this is meant to take place. The blurb, or not even on the Blu-ray, but on like the marketing materials for the film, set it at like 2027, 5 years after Jurassic World Dominion, which was set in 2022, because we see dates in the film. But then, so 32 years back from now, it'd be like 1995 or something, or 1993. And obviously, you think Jurassic Park, the dinosaurs returned, but we saw in Jurassic World Dominion that they were cloning them in the 1986. So it's just annoying. It's fourth wall breaking to talk to the audience, being like, the dinosaurs returned 32 years ago for you guys at home, but now this is where they are in the story. They're dying off, and this, that, and the other. Um, I also just want to note, while we're introducing Zora and Krebs here, as they chat in the car, um, there's a very, very subtle piece of dialogue in the background when this scene starts off, when the camera zooms off the mural being painted over. And you can hear the police arguing with someone on the road, and there's subtle dialogue in the distance. And you kind of really have to look at the transcript of the film to hear it. But someone says, "I thought we cleared these things out 2 years ago," because they're complaining about the Apatosaurus that's, you know, blocking traffic. And I found that line of dialogue really interesting, because we see the new World Trade Center in the background, and in Jurassic World Dominion, the previous film, they showed a shot of two Quetzalcoatlus nesting on the top of that building, whereas in this film we see the top of the building and it's clearly there's nothing up there. And before, this is again, like I said, why I like to let the dust settle before I do commentaries, because I didn't know about that line, and it was one of my complaints of this film, is that they show that building, and we're in New York, and we saw that there were dinosaurs present in New York in the previous film, so why didn't they address it? But apparently they did. So apparently the city voted to get those Quetzalcoatlus or whatever other dinosaurs, yeeted, get them zipped out of there. And so that, answers that question, why we don't see a nest on top of the building or anything, which I thought was really cool. Obviously, the idea of the dinosaurs dying off is quite interesting. I actually kind of like it a lot, because they didn't outrightly destroy all the dinosaurs. They're still existing on mainland areas and, stuff around the equator, the equatorial band, for the most part. But they've obviously significantly reduced in numbers. But they also address that in the previous film, because they talk about how the dinosaurs aren't really adapting, and a lot of the large predators have been captured and moved to Bison Valley, and and the black markets have been well, one of the major black markets, if not the major black market, where a lot of dinosaurs were trafficked through, which was the one in Malta, got shut down in Jurassic World Dominion. Um, so the governments have just been doing things about them. However, yeah, like they say in this film, there is a sort of stable, or there's like an established no-go zone around the equator, around Earth. And I really like that idea, because it's like, oh, cool. That means dinosaurs aren't just limited to islands, but they are also on islands. And not only that, it also, I believe, leaves the door open for mainland dinosaurs that are like elsewhere in the world in colder climates to be made really mysterious. So we could technically have a future Jurassic film where there are like dinosaurs. There's like, I don't know, people are like, there's a dinosaur in this area, and people are like, no, there's not. They don't live in these parts of the world, and blah blah blah, blah. And it like makes them mysterious again. Makes them like Bigfoot, like cryptids, kind of. Anyway, here we are in Henry Loomis's Neo Jurassic exhibition, which I do wish they did have a line of dialogue in this where they really emphasized the fact that exhibition, his exhibition here is about the modern clones, which is one of the reasons why these, fossils, for lack of a better term, they're not really fossils, but like the Quetzalcoatlus has the shape of the InGen Quetzalcoatlus's head instead of the paleoaccurate version that was seen in Dominion. Unless it's just meant to be a different species of Quetzalcoatlus, I don't know. And they are meant to be fossils. But all the if you zoom in on the like crates and stuff, all the bones say Neo Jurassic, so they are like modern dinosaurs that are, the bones of. A little fun fact here is right behind Zora, right there, we could see that there's this plaque underneath the Titanosaur bones, and there's this like you can see an elephant on it, and that's the miniature elephant that Hammond and Lockwood cloned, or not that they didn't clone. That's not well, I guess they did clone it, but it wasn't a prehistoric. Might have been a prehistoric elephant. I can't remember what was written in the law, and I'm a law consultant. It was like a miniature elephant that they used to like entice investors into InGen's endeavors. But you can see it behind the three characters now. This really long placard of information that tells the timeline of events, and there's a lot of information in that which I wrote, which is really fun to know that they used stuff that we wrote and had it printed on set. I wish there was like a really high quality picture of it. There's a quasi high quality picture online, but it's still blurry. You want a higher quality one. But yeah, I really love this scene though. Like the thing with Jurassic World Rebirth is, excuse me, was like its two biggest problems, just to get these out of the way, are it's non-committal to certain things. Like the timeline is all over the place. They never mention the name Jurassic World or Jurassic Park in the dialogue, as far as I remember. Um, I don't know why they just call it like the park, and they say the original park or the open park or the theme park and all this sort of stuff because they obviously wanted to just not be bogged down by the nitty gritty details of which the timeline they're talking about. But at the same time they're doing that, they are trying to create all this lore, and it's really annoying that they just didn't stick to just using what they had. And so basically what I'm trying to say is this island Ile Saint Hubert that they go to site C, they mention Krebs is like, it was a R&D for the original park. And then obviously at the beginning of the film it said 17 years ago, and obviously in the timeline of things that we know, 17 years ago is when Jurassic World was open. So, and they're making hybrids there, so that's obviously a lab for the park that was open. So was it leased by Hammond really early on for Jurassic Park as R&D, even though it's on in a completely different ocean to where his other operations were? Or was it just purely for the new park? But like I said, they kind of try and have their cake and eat it, but at the same, but it kind of muddies the water a bit. So you have to really like um it could go either way, and it's just annoying. They should have just said this was for Jurassic World, or even better, say it was a biocid lab. But that is Jurassic World Rebirth sort of blessing and curse, because it's so cool to see an R&D island and see Site C, I mean, on screen for the first time. Um, but they don't just commit to saying the names. So now we're off to Surname, and with the Jurassic theme blaring. We just had a crappy mint joke. I hate those mint jokes in this. It just lands really flat. The mint jokes land flat because one, it's like really annoying, that crunching sound, and it's not funny. It's just irritating. And then two, when he does the mint joke later in the film, it's like you're in on an island full of dinosaurs. Like you're trying to be quiet, and you just talked about predators eating things, so you don't want to be eating mints really loudly. And I know there's so much that goes on in this film that it's really hard to like, talk about everything that you want to talk about. Like we went over the Dunkleosteus head. Then they showed a head of a Dunkleosteus being brought up by a fishing trawler, which is a hangover from a previous Lost World script where they had a whole, I think it was a Japanese fishing boat pulls up a dead Parasaurolophus and dumps it on the deck in one script, and that's obviously you know a little detail from an old script, David Kep script, which he wrote this film. So he's reusing old ideas, but it was a Dunkleosteus, and I do love that as world building because it shows that, and like the little pteranodon in the cage we just saw, this is still a Jurassic World. Like, despite the dinosaur numbers going down, there are still elements where people are used to them, and there are Dunkleosteus swimming out there in the ocean, apparently, and little tiny genetically engineered pteranodon pets, and you know, it's very little tidbits of world building. But I really like it, and it makes me really fascinated for where the next one's going. Anyway, it's about time I actually talk about the bloody characters because we're in this bar scene and we've got Krebs and we've got Duncan Kincaid and we've got Zora here. And I actually like all the characters in this film, except for the oh God, what's his name? Xavier. Xavier. Not that I hate him, but there's certain moments where I'm like, I wish they'd done something else with him because he's. I'll get to it when we get to it. There's a scene I want to talk about with Xavier. Um, But there's also a very subtle thing right at the end of the film that I picked up on, which I really liked. So no one's dumb enough to know where we're going. And now we're seeing Bobby Atwater with some Ray Harryhausen footage and playing in the foreground. And Bobby Atwater is a character I wish had survived longer in the film because he's great. And I think his death is awesome. I just wish it was like, I wish they had two mercenaries like him. One gets eaten by the Spinosaurus like he does on the boat, and then Bobby Atwater actually makes it onto the island with the characters, and he gets split off from the group with the family, and then he could have been eaten by the T-Rex during the river raft sequence. That's what I wish happened because I really like his character. Um, he's not in it that long, but I like that he's just like, I'm here for security and I'll shoot dinosaurs or whatever. And his gun is massive. It just looks like one of those old Jurassic Park 3 weapons you used to get with the action figures. I think there's one that looks exactly like it. So I don't even know if that was like actually inspired by it, but it's very close. But now, yeah, we're on the boat, the Essex, which is a sort of a militarized security looking boat and painted in the sort of classic Jurassic Park colors. It's always cool to have a cool Jurassic Park vehicle, and that's one of my favorite aspects of this movie is how water based the whole film is. We spend a lot of time on this boat for the first half of the movie. The opening of the movie showed a river with the monkeys over it, and then the helicopter landing on a lagoon, and the whole island they go to is there's just lots of water everywhere, and a lot of the dinosaurs and the creatures, the genetically engineered creatures we see on the island, are all very amphibious looking, and they all look like salamanders, and there's like a weird lamprey type creature in the water, and obviously we have the whole T-Rex river sequence, and the Spinosaurus is attacking the boat, and the Mosasaurus attacking the sailboat, all this, that, and the other. I really appreciated that this was a very water-based Jurassic film because it gave it sort of a texture to the film which we hadn't really gotten before. I think the closest we'd gotten to that in the previous films was Jurassic World with the Mosasaur Lagoon, like Fallen Kingdom with the opening with the submarine, but the whole those films weren't all based around a certain element, whereas this film is very water heavy, and I actually really appreciate that because that might actually be. I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think that's probably in my top five favorite aspects of this film. It's the fact that it's just water based because it's fun. It's really fun, and they do a lot of really cool things with it as well. Loomis looking sad at the idea that Bobby Atwell wants to shoot a dinosaur. Now they're introducing the dart gun that Zora's going to use, which is a really cool little piece of equipment that they, have. Now, Jurassic Park back in 1993 introduced the world to living, breathing animals on screen using CGI, and that was what was one of the most amazing, things going for it, and made people convinced that things were real in front of their eyes that weren't. And Jurassic World Rebirth's sort of version of that, I would say, is just the abundance of CGI they use in this film that just looks flawlessly real. Like a lot of these shots of them on the water on this boat, they're not out at sea at all, and it's all just like faked. And there's like a lot of CG water and stuff. And there's certain green screen shots like this one where you can kind of tell, but there are other ones where you wouldn't know at all, like because they just blend it so seamlessly. And I think there's obviously a lot of shots in this film where the it's very CG heavy and you can tell, but there are loads of other shots where it is CG heavy and you just don't know unless you actually watch like the behind the scenes. But like I said, they're dealing with a lot of water, so um, it makes sense that it's harder to do, harder to be convincing. And here we get Zora and Duncan's, heart to heart over their sort of tragic lives. Zora's talking about how, she lost her friend on the last mission. She wants to get the money and get out of there. And Duncan's revealing, well, he's not revealing right now. They're literally talking about her friend who's, been blown up, car bomb. She literally just said car bomb. Um, but we learn that Duncan Kincaid had a kid who died. We don't know exactly how he died. I want to say, and I could be wrong here, there's like subtle hints that Duncan blames himself and maybe it was his fault, but they obviously don't go into it. But like, or maybe at least he thinks it's his fault. But anyway, the point is that the dialogue in this scene, obviously, it's character building. We learn that they're both sort of out there running away from their pasts, and Zora's like, "I'm here for the money. Let's." She says to Duncan in a minute after he talks about his kid. She says, "How about we stay alive and we get filthy rich?" And Duncan says, "Rich is nice, but you got to do something more of your life, something meaningful." And then she goes, "Okay," and he's like, "Don't just brush that off. I mean it." That's like the crux of their two characters' entire journey in this movie, because obviously, when it comes down to, Zora's got, she gets the chance to have all the money, but then she has to do something meaningful. So it's, um, sharing it with the world. And for Duncan, it's just stay alive because obviously, like I said, there's hints that he blames himself for the child's death. And so he has this thing where he wants to protect children and he doesn't mind sacrificing his life for them. But obviously, he makes a promise to Zora in this scene that he wants to, that, they should stay alive. So that's one of the reasons why he lives at the end of the film. Spoilers. Um, I really like the dialogue here. I really like their acting. Um, I like the writing when he says about his child who died. It's just very clever writing. He's like, we just looked at each other, we saw our little boy, and it's like those. simple lines, and it just tells you exactly what you need to know. There you go. He said, "Do not wait." And now we cut to 47 miles due south, and we're getting introduced to the Delgados. I want to say the Delgado family, but I'm going to have to look that up because some of the names don't stick in my mind at the moment. Is it Delgado? Just look it up quickly. But while I'm looking this up, I just want to mention there's also another thing in terms of the editing with Jurassic World Rebirth, which is brand new to the series, is they have songs introduce the transition scenes. Like we just had one when this boat came in, and then the songs will fade into some radio or something that they're listening to in the actual scene. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of that because it comes across to me like very sort of modern blockbuster-ish, just they pay to have songs. The license for songs just they can have a beat over the top of footage, and a cool song playing over it. And it's like it happens 4 or 5 times in this film. And I think it's a bit too much. And it's really obvious with the last one. The last one is when they're at the garage at the end of the film, and towards the climax, and the "In the night will come," dum, 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 dum. The "Stand By Me" song starts playing when the power comes back on at the base, and as soon as the hybrid mutadon uh, dinosaur monsters appear, the song just stops, and it's like it would have been better if, for the scene, if that song played while the dinosaurs were hunting them, if you're going to do it. But it just comes across as like, now we just want the cool song for this moment, and then when the action starts, it just stops. It just inexplicably. I can't talk tonight, and I'm doing a bloody commentary. It just stops randomly, and it's like, yeah, I can see what you're doing here. But yeah, that's one of the aspects that I would have changed on a creative level. And another thing is they subtitle characters talking in a foreign language, which they've never done in any Jurassic film previously. Now, I don't know why they didn't do it in the previous 6 Jurassic films. Um, but in this one, they have the choice of when the French character speaks. Not all the time, but they'll subtitle him. And I don't like that. I prefer it when you like watch it, and if you don't understand that language, you just don't know what they're saying, and it adds this like sort of flavor to the film of you know different people from different countries just speaking comfortably in their own language. And they did it a lot in the Lost World, and the Lost World, they have like Nick Van Owen translate, but they don't have someone. Well, they do it in Jurassic Park, like right at the beginning at the amber mines. They have that character speaking in, I believe it's Spanish, and they don't subtitle him, um, for English viewers. Yes, Delgado. It's got Ruben Delgado, um, Luna Delgado. Oh no, Teresa Delgado. She's played by Luna Blaze. Sorry, Xavier Dobbs and Isabella Delgado. And now they're seeing Spinosaurus fins in the background. Very creepy. Them just moving around out there. Now the Mosasaurus have just bumped their boat. Again, with the whole like committed but not committed aspect of this film, the Mosasaurus itself, I think I personally prefer this design of Mosasaur to the one from the previous films. I love the Mosasaur from the previous films, but this one, because they've added that like sort of whale look to it, and it looks smelly and fishy. Like it looks like you can smell it, because they make it look really like a big fish in terms of its like shininess, and the way its skin is all like green, and the pattern on it. It's very well done. It looks very nautical, aquatic looking in its design. Whereas the Mosasaurus in the previous film was very scaly and reptilian looking, which makes sense because it's a reptile. Um, this Mosasaurus I prefer. However, they say that InGen was tracking it after it escaped, and then the company Parkogenics, which Krebs and the characters who are going to the island to get the blood of the dinosaurs in the plot, he in the main plot, he mentions that they bought InGen's data when they went to chapter 11. So after the Jurassic, so this is the thing, they don't explain it, but like after the Jurassic World went down and Mazrani Global moved on from dinosaurs, InGen I guess went into chapter 11 around Fallen Kingdom time, and then, well, actually just before the timeline of Fallen Kingdom, and so obviously InGen sold their data off and Parkogenics bought it. But that does mean that this mosasaurus was swimming around the ocean, escaped from Site C, and stuck close to this island well before the events of Fallen Kingdom, where we see like the other mosasaurus escape. And so there are two mosasaurs apparently swimming out in the ocean, but one of them had been swimming out in the ocean a lot longer than we previously knew. Because there was a lot of confusion about whether this was meant to be the same mosasaurus. Even I, when Rebirth came out, initially thought they'd retconned the design of the original mosasaur um, to look like this, like completely different. And I think I went to when I went to the Jurassic World Rebirth sort of fan event the day the film came out in London. There was like one of the actors there in the event mentioned, oh, the mosasaurus escaped from Isla Nublar and has now been spotted by Ile Saint Hubert. And it's like, okay, that's what confused us. We were like, is this meant to be the same mosasaurus? Oh my god, like they've completely redesigned it. But no, it's not meant to be the same one. It's just meant to be one that escaped a long time before and has just hung around this island because, it's good food and doesn't go that far. But it would be really fun. I don't think they'd ever do it, but which would be a shame. But it'd be really, really um, fun if they had a moment where these two mosasaurs meet up in a future movie. Love that shot of its tail going down with the family in the foreground. Give you a sense of how big it is. Obviously, everyone thought Xavier was going to be taken down by the mosasaurus then and killed, but it's the first inkling of him getting the bag and showing that he's actually, useful. And this is the only time we see any sort of rain in the movie, and it's a storm way off in the distance, which I really like. I mean, I really like when it's because I'm a fan of Twister, the movie Twister. I like when you see storms off in the distance and they're just like rumbling in the distance. But yeah, for a movie that is water based, a lot of it is very surprising that they didn't utilize rain at any point in this film. One of the things the Jurassic films have never really done, if memory serves, is rain during the day. I don't think they've ever done that except for maybe Jurassic World, because there's a scene in Jurassic World where Owen and Claire jump onto the quad bike as they're like driving off to go to Main Street before the pteranodons attack, and you only really can see it on the 4K Blu-ray, but it's raining in that scene very subtly, and that's in the day. So it's the only time I can ever think that there's rain during the day in the Jurassic movies, unless my mind is completely blanking on one. It's always at night. But it would have been cool in this film, I think, if the T Rex River attack sequence was during a rainstorm as well. Could have added sort of an extra element to it, like during the day. This is an odd moment because we have Zora and Loomis bonding over, not getting, he's like, I've never been shot at. And she's like, there's still time or something like that. And then the Jurassic Park music starts playing, like the theme tune. It's like, why? I've never got that. I've never got why they played that over that bit. Uh, Great, beautiful shot of the Essex driving in front of a sunset or sunrise, sorry. Duncan just drinking his morning coffee. Speaking of coffee, I'm going to have some coffee. Wet my whistle. is where we get the first subtitles. I was awake. Now Duncan's getting the distress call, and the characters are all going to mull over: should they go back and rescue, or should they continue on and keep their mission going? So you have that good sort of, you know, debate. What do we do? Do we go after the money and just get the job done, or do we leave these people in distress? You have Atwater here making the case for, you might as well just go get the money. Which I think the filmmakers are trying to paint him in a bad light for wanting to do that instead of going to rescue the family. There is a line of dialogue here from Duncan when he's like, um, Krebs, it's like, it's my charter. And then Duncan's like, my boat. And it's like just ripped verbatim from Jaws. And obviously the boat is very Jaws inspired with its, the little bow, the bit that sticks out at the front of the bow. I forget the exact name of it. Um, there you go. He's just said it. My charter, my boat, my boat. No one will be there. No one's dumb enough to go where we're going. I don't know why he sounds like that. That's my Duncan impression. But yes, we see the Delgado family and Xavier now spotted the Essex coming. Now, with the family aspect, I like the family. It's obviously very Jurassic Park free. Um, with the normal family caught up in the events. I mean, there's lots of similarities to Jurassic Park 3 with this film. Um, I won't go into them all now because I'll be here forever. But the idea of just like a normal family caught up in the adventure, um, it has that aspect, and I do like them. I just wish Xavier wasn't so much of an idiot. Like, obviously, he's a stoner and he's a bit of aloof and doesn't. He's a bit annoying. But obviously, they establish later on that he has this like heroic side to him, where like he'll just not. He won't even stop to think. He'll jump in the water to go rescue his girlfriend or whatever, or he'll get the bag for him out of the boat, and this, that, and the other. But there's just certain aspects to his, I don't know, his presence that is irritating, if that makes sense. Like, there's a bit here where like he's eating a packet of crisps or some sort of sweet or something, and he's looking at Krebs. He's like, "Who's creeping me out? Who's creeping me out?" And it's like, yeah, it's like, all right, mate. There you go. He's saying, "Oh, M&Ms. He's eating M&Ms." He's like, "He's creeping me out." Now, in terms of eating, there's this through line of eating in this film. They're pushing all the candy uh, off the sort of display table, and that's obviously must be a throwback to when they cleared Nedry's workstation in the first Jurassic Park. But at the same time, as like there, they just showed the little girl eating an M&M. she's always eating these like Twizzlers, these candy Twizzlers, and there's this like little dinosaur thing in the shop later on. It's like, you look like candy. I'm gonna eat you up, or something like that. And Snickers wrapper is the thing that causes the distorters to escape and all that. There's this thing about candy and eating junk food in this film that I don't know what the film is trying to say with that. Whether it's there's Atwater's big gun. Um, Whether it's saying, I guess it's saying it's a bad thing to the Snickers, but that was littering. The Snickers was already eaten. Um, but like whether it's a bad thing um, to scoff your face, or whether it's saying scoff your face because you're just watching like this Jurassic World movie, like eat your popcorn kind of thing. You're watching a blockbuster. That's an amazing shot of the Mosasaurus breaching the water. Love that shot. This whole sequence is just phenomenal. There's so much. It's so fun. I remember after Fallen Kingdom came out, with the Mosasaurus out in the ocean, and just before Jurassic World Dominion, there was a lot of talk in the Jurassic fandom about wouldn't it be cool if there was a. I saw many people say this on Twitter mostly, but and in Jurassic forums, but they were saying like, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a whole film about like the Mosasaurus out in the ocean and we're just following characters, tracking it down and hunting it, or in this, that, and the other, or like an aquatic Jurassic film. They talked about that a lot. Then Dominion came out, and those that people still kind of talked about that sort of thing. But then this film comes along, and it is exactly what people were talking about years ago. I swear I could. I mean, I'd have to go through the archives of. I swear there's one of the Jurassic Outpost podcasts. They talk about it like way back in the day. I remember them going, "Oh, it'd be really cool if there was like a dinosaur, one of the Jurassic movies, like a dinosaur movie, but like set on the ocean with like the mosasaur. Now it's out there in the wild. You could do that, and it's literally what we get with this film. So maybe they are listening to the fandom to a certain extent. This is just such a fun sequence. The idea they got to get these. It's a fun idea that they have to get the blood from these three giant creatures. Oh no, here comes one of the best shots from the film where it breaches again. Oh, so awesome. Oh, she accidentally fired the dart. Krebs in this scene going, come on, come on, come on. Oh, I just love the coloration of this mosasaur. It just looks so good. Like I said, it looks smelly. It looks like it smells of fish and salt water. Come on! Come on, do it! Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, it's just like banging up against the boat and looking right at Zora. God, it's so awesome. It's just it looks so real as well. There you go. She made the shot. The music's great as well. Alexandre Desplat. He did a fantastic job with this film. Although, again, weird choice with the Jurassic Park theme and where it comes in. But this whole musical cue of the boat chase, this whole track is one of the best in the entire soundtrack. But it's also got subtle hints of Jurassic World's themes in there as well. Another great shot of the tail going under with the character in the foreground. Yeah, just rare. That's just such a really fun scene. See, like he started speaking French then, and they didn't subtitle him. It's like that's how it should have been. Henry Loomis. He's going to try and talk Zora. He's like, we shouldn't be giving this to certain people. So the people who can afford it can get the healthcare or whatever. I like Loomis, but he's a rubbish paleontologist. Calling the mosasaur and the Quetzalcoatlus dinosaurs. So I hear like Xavier just got a slap in the face from from the father. It's like he was like hyperventilating. It's like, what is that about? Like, does he have panic attacks? They don't establish it anymore anywhere else in the film. And now we come up to one of the best sequences in this film, following on from one of the best sequences, where the Spinosauruses appear. And we get this whole sequence. Now, what I really like about this is the Spinosauruses in this film they look so cool and they look really menacing. And it's really cool that there's not just one, there's like 4 or 5 of them in this film. I know there's 4 on screen now. There's the Mosasaurus with them as well. They are huge, those Spinosauruses. You can see like little Loomis on the little Loomis on the deck of the ship. And it's just so cool seeing them in the water as well. It's just such a different. It's just such a different look to like how we saw the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3. We saw that in the water briefly, but this is like out in the ocean. Oh, Bobby Atwater's about to get it. His gun's doing nothing. This is great. Oh, it's got him. No, Bobby. God, he must be strong to be holding on to that door. No, it's just such a bad way to go. None of you can hear him in the background be like, God, the Mosasaur just reaches right next to the boat. I love that wobble on its skin when it hits the water again. But this is the beginning of like the classic Jurassic Park sequence of the vehicle being attacked by an animal, by one of the dinosaurs, and a you know marine reptile in this case as well. Um, God, the Spinosaurus is so cool. But yeah, what I love about the Spinosaurus is looking so different to the one from Jurassic Park 3 is obviously in my work on Jurassic, um, on the official viral marketing and stuff, we wrote that the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus was this like genetically engineered experiment that was like, genetically enhanced or like messed with on a genetic level in secret and illegally. And this film comes along, and obviously the films don't go all into. I know I did mention previously that there's some things we wrote in the backgrounds and stuff, but I don't actually know to the extent what else we've written, how far that's gone, because obviously we don't work on it anymore because Colin's off the project and there's new people in and stuff. Um, but seeing this film and seeing that the Spinosauruses have a completely different look and they have certain sounds that are the same as the Jurassic Park 3 one. There's certain elements there that you can see subtle hints of the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus in their design. Um, but I like that they're different enough because it shows the genetic manipulation just by visually looking at them. Like you can see the differences. So now when you go back and watch Jurassic Park 3, you're like, yeah, this one does look like it's been messed with genetically compared to these ones. And what one is more paleo accurate in the Jurassic Park universe, we don't know. But I really like that because even though then they don't, have characters go, oh, back in 1999 they cloned a Spinosaurus on Site B, like kind of thing. They don't need to talk about the work we did. They just show the Spinosaurus in this one looking different, and it gives you all that context just by a simple visual. Here you go. Xavier's going to just instantly jump in the water to save his girlfriend. It's like this is the Xavier I like, the heroic Xavier, cool Xavier. And we just saw the scene just gone of Krebs allowing um it was Isabella. I get their names all mixed up. Is Isabella the young one, or is that the older girl? Isabella, Teresa. I always forget the name Teresa. That's the one that always escapes me. Teresa falling in the water, and that's obviously a nod to the Lost World novel where Dodson pushes Sarah Harding into the ocean as their boat arrives on Site B. But in this one, he doesn't necessarily push her overboard; he just doesn't save her, allowing her to fall. God, I love this Mosasaurus. I love the noise it makes. It was like makes this like really cool sound. Yeah, and you got the boat being rammed up against these rocks. Now, Site C in this film is Ile Saint Hubert, is very Kong Skull. Well, not even Kong Skull Island. It's very Peter Jackson's King Kong in its look and design. Like the Skull Island in that film reminds me of that. And there are obviously places in the real world that look like this because they've even used plates and footage of places in the real world that look like this. And it's very visually different to Site B and Isla Nublar. You know, it follows in that tradition of you know how when they were doing the Lost World, they Spielberg was like, I want like redwood trees and I want this island Site B to look completely different to Isla Nublar from the previous film. So they wanted to give it a different quality, and then they followed in that tradition for this film, um, with with Ile Saint Hubert looking like this, and I really like it. And like I said, it's like because it's very aquatic. There's lots of waterways through, like what we're seeing right now with the caves, the water going through. There's loads of like rivers and streams and swamps and bogs and all that sort of stuff, and that I love that about this island that it just almost looks like it's almost like it's sinking. I hate that bit of dialogue. And he's like, he pushed me in. He's like, who? And she's like, that guy. And he's like, I know he was creepy. It's like, how do you know she was talking about him? How do you know? I guess you might have seen him go in with her after her when she went in to make the radio call. I can't do it now because I'm recording the commentary, but I'll have to go back and see where Xavier is in conjunction to that scene. This is great, this beach sequence. And the boat all shipwrecked. So you hear that roar in the background. That's one of the roars where it really sounds like the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus. Next time I'm driving. See, we didn't need it subtitled. He could have just said that and we can infer what he's trying to say. Just saw a picture of Duncan's son. Now we get this shot of Nina pulling this massive pack up on the beach, and you see the Spinosaurus rising up from its nap in the background. I just love the look of those Spinosauruses. They just look so different and weird. And here we go. The Nina's been got. Just grab it on the back. No, no, no! And she's getting eaten, which is the second on-screen death of a female character in the Jurassic series. So out of 7 movies so far, there's only been 2 women who have died on screen. There's obviously been women who have died off screen, but like literally on screen. That was our second one. First one being Zara in Jurassic World, which is very, famous death in the series, and then Nina here. And also, just to note, the Spinosaurus is getting 2 kills straight out the gate in this film. I mean, if you're Team Spinosaurus, you're smiling ear to ear. This film just, Yep, two kills by the Spinosaurus straight away. These characters, they don't stand a chance. I was surprised by Nina's death when I watched this the first time because I was like, I wasn't expecting another death so quick after, after Bobby Atwater got taken away. But it shows how sort of dangerous this island is. But this is again one of the reasons why I wish there was just one more character with them or Xavier, um, or even the dad. There needed to be another character out of this lot, Xavier or the dad, who bit the dust, or another mercenary, like Bobby Atwater, who was there um, to bite the dust. Because I feel like this film, it's not that it's all about the deaths, but there's certain aspects to it where it's like there's certain scenes in this where they play out, and you're begging for a dinosaur to eat someone to have that moment. It's like crazy looking island. So here we go. Take note of the dialogue in this scene because they're talking about mutated dinosaurs, and Trebs mentions they called them uh what is it? What does he call it? Engineered entertainments, right? Engineered entertainments. He said the park owners were only listening to what the public wanted, and it's like that's all Jurassic World, but they just don't name drop Jurassic World, which is it's like you think it just be like, oh, at Jurassic World, because in the universe of Jurassic Park, that was the only park that was open, as far as we know, like a fully functioning theme park. It would have been world famous. Obviously, Jurassic Park was the first one, and people knew about that in the Jurassic universe, obviously, but that one never actually opened to the public, whereas Jurassic World was open for 10 years. So it comes across weird as a fan of this franchise to have characters talking about we obviously know what they're talking about, but they don't name drop it, and it comes across as not natural when they do that. It makes it a little bit unbelievable, and you can feel that it's actually more the producers going, we don't want this film to be bogged down in all the previous films gumph, right? We just want to get to the story of them surviving on the island or whatever. And it just comes across as not as authentic as it could have been. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Um, we get that they're talking about Jurassic World, but he could have just said, at Jurassic World, and then that places it in a time, But they wanted to have their cake and eat it, like I said, because people who aren't as invested in the lore will just think of Jurassic Park, or they'll think of Jurassic World. Like it works for both, which it does. But at the same time, it's as a lore nerd, it's like it doesn't seem like a real conversation at that point. Some great music here with the drums. Good. It's a shame that that was the last we saw of the Spinosauruses, was like hearing them in the background, because I was expecting them to come back at some point in the story. It would have been fun had they, you know, bumped into a bunch of Spinosauruses at some point on this island. We got the geothermal power pipe. Geothermal power pipe engine. Now, it is interesting that they obviously went back to, air quotes, went back to basics with this film, the idea of, you're trapped on an island full of dinosaurs and you need to make an escape. That's the plot boiled down, like, to its bare bones. But obviously, this was with Fallen Kingdom, that whole film was we're moving away from the islands narratively. Um, half the film set on an island, but we're actually blowing it up with this volcano, and then we're moving the dinosaurs to the mainland. And then Jurassic World Dominion is a plot about these genetically engineered locusts. Genetic powers gone out of control. And a kid and a dinosaur gets kidnapped and whatever. But the whole idea is that whole film shows us the world where dinosaurs are global, and there's black markets opened up, and there's illegal breeding, and the government are capturing them and moving them on, and this, that, and the other. And we see dinosaurs interrupting everyday life, and we get this massive scale story of dinosaurs global. And at the end of that film, it's like we just have to learn to coexist, because what else are we going to do, basically? And then the next film, everyone was expecting, even myself, for a film set in that sort of same world. Dinosaurs are everywhere. What are we going to do with it? Because that's what everyone was, for years, we were building up to getting to that point, because everyone was saying, like, there's only so many times you can go back to an island before it becomes stale. But apparently, apparently, it only takes one movie or one and a half movies set on the mainland for them to be like, now we want to go back to the island thing. And I've always said that I don't mind what they do as long as the context works and it makes sense. And Jurassic World Rebirth, I like it because I think the context does work for the most part. And it makes sense why we go back to an island, and it is refreshing after the one and a half build up of movies to go. Dinosaurs are global. We're going to follow a story to this where we're seeing characters walk through this bog, on an island full of dinosaurs when they're trying to escape, and it's very classic sort of Jurassic aesthetics. Um, I'm a fan of this franchise. This is the stuff I love, so I'm not going to say I don't love it. Um, it's what makes these movies fun, the tropical rainforest and stuff. But I do hope that the next film goes away from an island and we explore mainland, or at least do a good mainland plot, or half a plot or something. There needs to be a clever way of weaving in both. I mean, I have my own ideas of how that could work, I think, but yeah, like they've proven with Jurassic World Rebirth that an island plot can still be popular, because this film has, made a lot of money and people went and saw it. Um, for the most part, people liked it, and obviously there are a lot of detractors to this film, but that's every bloody Jurassic sequel except Jurassic World. Jurassic World was met with mostly positive reviews, whereas all the other sequels, Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, Fallen Kingdom, Dominion, and this, have all had sort of like similar receptions, where people either love them, and there's a group of people who say they're the worst thing ever. So, um, but I do hope the next film, gets to explore the wider world a bit more than, and it doesn't even have to be a road movie. It could be set in one location, just somewhere else. But I just think it'd be more interesting to explore, the world around, rather than just go back to another island, or even back to this one. Although I don't think we're ever coming back to this island, but I'll talk about that later if I remember. So we're about to meet the dinosaur character that is called, or nicknamed, Dolores by the little girl, which is this little Aquilops, which is, it's cute. And as far as sort of, for lack of a better term, sidekick dinosaur characters go, it's not as cool as Blue by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a lot better than Bumpy. Fuck Bumpy. It's not canon. Um, That is also another plus for Jurassic World Rebirth, in my opinion, is the fact that it does not give a shit about the animated shows. It just is like, well, now we're moving on. We're just completely moving on and doing our own thing going forward. And I do really like that. But I will say the name Jurassic World Rebirth is just, it just dumbfounds me because what is being rebirthed in this film? Is it Zora's character, rebirthing into choosing to do something right? That's a bit loose. And it's like, is it reboot? It's just purely we're rebooting the Jurassic World series with this film, a whole bunch of new characters, this, that, and the other. So it's a rebirth. But it's like, well, one, you're a dinosaur series and genetic engineering series, so dinosaurs don't birth, they hatch. And two, I think if I've got my facts correct, this film was originally called Jurassic World Survival, and there's a scene we've just passed it where Loomis is talking about, how dinosaurs went extinct and humans, even though we're super intelligent, we have the capacity to kill ourselves and make ourselves extinct right now. And he's like, there's a line which is all over the trailers of survival is a long shot. And it's like that was that is the line of dialogue that is tied to the original title of the film. And plus, Jurassic World Survival makes so much more sense as a title for this plot and what they're doing, because the whole plot is they're trying to find um this cure through the blood of the dinosaurs, or like a cure for heart disease, so more people can survive. They're trying to survive on the island from the dinosaurs that they've got trapped on. He has a whole conversation, as I said, a whole monologue about survival, and they make a big point of it. But then they call the film Jurassic World Rebirth. So that's another big negative for me with this film is just the title itself, because I think it's a lame title. I think Jurassic World Survival would have been a much better title, way more fitting. So here we go. Xavier. This is where I like that he said, about the pipes just then. He's like, the pipes go up that way. He's showing to the dad that he's competent and yeah, he could be relied upon. And obviously, he says his daughter thinks highly of him and she sees you, and he's like, oh, I hope she doesn't. And then the dad says, um, you know, he's like, other people will talk shit about us, but we don't have to do the job for them. And then Xavier just looks at him, a bit of like an odd look, and then he goes, I need to take a piss, and walks off. And it's like, I don't know if it's just my brain or what. I don't really get why Xavier's acting the way he's acting, because it never really gets resolved, I don't think, unless I'm missing something. It's like he shies away from compliments and talking about himself in a positive light, but then he's a bit of an idiot. I don't know. I just feel like they probably could have just made him a little bit more competent, in my opinion. And if I was the dad and he went, I hope she doesn't, because he said she sees you, and he's like, oh, I sure hope she doesn't, or whatever. If I was the dad, I'd be like, that's a red flag right there. What are you doing? That means you don't want her to see the real you. Why are you lying to my daughter? I'd be grilling him. I'd be like, what are you doing? What was that comment? What do you mean? Who are you really? We see what we believe is Dolores coming up, little girl. I say what we believe is Dolores because I think there's like a running joke that every single Aquilops she meets on the island is a different one. And it snuggles, it's like about to snuggle down on the bag, go to sleep. I think that's also a nod to the Jurassic Park book slash a scene in the original film they were going to do where Lex befriends a baby Triceratops for like a scene, but they've made like a whole thing in the movie about around it. And now Xavier's about to have a piss, and we see two velociraptors slowly stalking up behind him. And these are some of the most gorgeous raptor designs we've ever had in the series. And they've been reduced to just background blurry. You know, they're cool, but then they get taken out by. It's about to do it now. Yep, there it is, the Mutodon. Now, I I I have a lot to say about the Mutadons because I think the Mutadons are actually my least favorite sort of dinosaur element in this film. I'll talk about them when they become like really when we get to their big scene, but one we see it now flying off with the Velociraptor, and one aspect is I don't think they should be able to fly. Um, they I guess because survival. If it was called Jurassic World Survival, it would make sense. You know, these are meant to be like mutated freaks. And it's like, but they're really competent and they just look like a finished product completely. But it's also the fact that they're just like, they're so dragon like. And they, yeah, I feel like they shouldn't have flown. They should have glided. They should have like climbed up the trees and then glided down onto their prey and then scampered up the tree trunks with their like clawed hands or whatever. So it's like, ugh, what are those things? And that would have also been a nice nod to the JP. I think it was the JP4 sales script where like Dilophosauruses hung from trees by their tails and stuff. Something like that, if I remember correctly. But yes, that was it. That was the only Velociraptor scene we got in the entire film. So, and again, like an aspect, like Jurassic Park 3 has that one scene with the T Rex which fights the Spinosaurus and then dies. In this film, we see the Velociraptors get hunted down by one Mutodon and die in the background, and that's it. And it's like it's more disrespectful to the Velociraptors in this film than what happened to the T Rex in Jurassic Park 3. And I mean, I get it after the last three Jurassic films with like Blue and the whole Raptor squad thing. Blue's story is finished. They wanted to like do something different than Velociraptors, but the previous film, Jurassic World Dominion, didn't. It had Blue at the beginning and Beta, but they didn't really have much Velociraptor stuff in Jurassic World Dominion. They had a Trociraptor, which they might as well basically be the bloody same thing, except for the intelligence levels. Um, but the what's the point I'm trying to get to? But the Raptors got a bad rep in this film, and they could have basically been the Mutadons, and it still would have worked, and it would have worked better in my opinion. Even though it would have been the sort of same old hat, but at least it would have been refreshing after we explored the Raptors' intelligence through Blue in the previous films. In this one, we'd have gone back to like how they were in the original film. These wild, menacing beasts. Anyway, I'm talking about raptors over the whole Titanosaur scene we've got here. I love the look of these guys in the grass. And I'm not talking about the dinosaurs, I'm talking about Zora and Loomis. Like these shots of them crouched in the grass. Him with his big rimmed glasses, or big round glasses, and her holding that sort of weapon. It just looks so cool. And then you have the Titanosaurs being all lovey dovey. And they are a really freaky looking sauropod. And you get the subtle Distortus Rex bulbous on their head. So again, kind of like the Spinosauruses and their genetically messed up look. Um, in this film, the Distortus Rex, the way it's designed, you have to look at all these dinosaurs that they come across the island, and you can determine what makes up the genetic makeup of the Distortus Rex. So obviously we see the bulbous heads on the Titanosaurs here. So there's definitely Titanosaur DNA in the Distortus Rex. and obviously T-Rex because it's in the name. I'll tell you my thoughts on what might also be in the Distortus Rex when we see uh, another creature, which I think was part of its genetic makeup. Those titanosaurs are absolutely massive. They are huge. Gareth Edwards with his weird obsession of giant monsters being all passionate towards each other. He did it in Monsters. He did it in Godzilla 2014. He's done it in this. Don't know if he's done it in anything else, but he's done it 3 times. It's kind of strange. Now we have the best use of the Jurassic Park theme in this film. I love when like we just saw it, but like the music kicks in when the leg starts moving. Woo! Do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do-do. That's so good. It would have been nice, I know, like we're in the middle of the film. It would have been nice had the Titanosaur scene had a little bit extra to it where they were dangerous and they were like trying to avoid the Titanosaurs for some reason, or there was some extra element to them that made them different as herbivores. Because we've had this classic herbivore ore scene in a lot of the Jurassic films, and it would have been nice if this one had added an element of danger to the Titanosaurs that meant these sauropods you don't mess with, but they didn't do that at all. But it would have been nice because this was the perfect opportunity to do that kind of thing, considering your film was originally called Jurassic World Survival. So even with the herbivores, like the sauropods, you have to survive. So while the Delgatos cross this little babbling brook, um, we'll just go back and talk about how they've got 2 of the DNAs that they need now. They've got the Mosasaurus and they've got the Titanosaurus DNA. So they only need the Quetzalcoatlus. This is where the girl gets Dolores in her backpack, which they was clearly done because they were like they want to sell toys of Dolores, and I know they're bringing out or they've already brought out like a 1-for-1 scale Dolores toy. I wonder if it will come in a backpack. And now we're coming up to possibly the best scene. Oh, it's arguably the best scene in the film, which is the T-Rex raft sequence. So while we're watching, the characters are all tumbling down the hill. Dolores is now about to come down in the backpack. There it is. And like the music, the setting, the T-Rex, obviously, everything about this scene, I think, is just chef's kiss. The only thing I would change about this scene, like I said previously, is I'd have had someone else with them, or I would have had the T Rex eat Xavier or the dad in this sequence and then work out the plot afterwards. How that affects the plot going forward in terms of character developments. Um, but it would have just been great to have had the T Rex eat someone in this sequence. That's the only gripe I have. And I call it a gripe because we've had 4 Jurassic World movies. Um, and well, actually, let's count them all, right? We haven't had a T Rex eat a human on screen since Fallen Kingdom, which was with Mills. But out of all the Jurassic films, Jurassic Park, Lost World, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom are the only films in this 7-film series where a T-Rex eats someone. It's like, it's about time we have a T-Rex eat a human again on screen in a Jurassic film. It's like, it's getting painful now. We need to have a T-Rex eat someone. Colin almost did it in Jurassic World Dominion with the T-Rex going through the bloomin' drive-through theater, and it like snaps at someone. I was like, oh, it should pick someone up. Although we do have some really good gore here with this dead Parasaurolophus, which, interestingly enough, is the same design of Parasaurolophus that we saw at the beginning of Jurassic World Dominion that are running loose in the wilds of the Nevada mountains, I believe it is. And all the fans are like, where did these ones come from? Are they biosyn parasaurs? It's like, nope, they're actually InGens, apparently. There's the Dilophosaurus. First Dilophosaurus ever seen on screen in CGI in a Jurassic film. It looks really nice. Now, there's a video online of Gareth Edwards plotting out this sequence with some of the visual effects, and they actually had a T-Rex family. I think it's like three or four, sorry, T-Rexes on this riverbank. 2 adults, I believe, and 2 infants. And I think originally it was like they're all asleep except one of the infant T-Rexes are eating from that carcass. I can't remember if that's exactly right, but it was something like that. So it wasn't originally a Dilophosaurus that was hopping over the carcass. It was a baby T-Rex, like an infant, which would have been interesting. However, I actually prefer. I mean, more T-Rex is always fun, but I actually prefer how they've done it here with the Dilophosaurus because one, we get to see the Dilophosaurus again, and also just having one T-Rex is nice. Just one big, mean, scary T-Rex. You don't need to have too many. And I mean, the T-Rex in this film is just amazing. It's so cool looking. They nailed the design because it looks messed up if you look at its like cheeks. It's got these huge scales and it's got a stumpier neck and it looks more robust and it just doesn't look exactly right. But it's not like off-putting to look at. You can really see how it's like it looks different to other T-Rexes we've had so far. It looks nowhere near streamlined, um, which makes sense given the island that it's on. But they didn't design it to look too dissimilar to a T-Rex that we know and love, because that would be off-putting for the audience. We want to see the T-Rex, so and it looks like a T-Rex. They just nailed the design down. And now it's woke up, and we see it walking towards the river to have a drink. And I love the music in the scene. It's like although actually, I just reminded myself of another change I would have done in this sequence is I would have had no music. It would have been completely silent and just all is it diegetic sound. Little cameo there from a Jurassic World Pteranodon. So I think this scene would have played out, been even more tense if there was just no music. Oh, it just looks so cool. It spotted them. And it's a male T-Rex. Because they used the male T-Rex model in Jurassic World Dominion, and they've obviously used that and built this one off of it. And it's been years since we've seen a male T-Rex in a Jurassic film properly, since Jurassic Park 3, I guess. And it's just so nice to also have a new, different T-Rex. That shot there is one of my favorites in the entire franchise. So cool. Of it wading into the water after them. And then we see the T-Rex swimming. And obviously, it goes without saying this is from the original novel. But so fun to see this like manifested into a movie finally. And we're gonna get the raw. Here we go. Yeah, it's just so great. And now we get the whole river rapid sequence. Again, it just reminds me of Jurassic Park the ride. It's like I love that the rubber raft was yellow, and it's like Jurassic Park the ride with like these rapids, and you're being hunted by the T Rex. That's underwater stuff's fun as well, where it's like looking at him underwater and then snapping towards him. And the sound design's cool here as well. Oh, I just love the roars. I love they really lent into like the classic Lost World male T Rex roars as well. Now, have you noticed that the two rocks that they pass through here, that they're sort of like clutching onto, they're the two rocks we saw. It's the very first, the very opening shot of the movie, right at the beginning of the film, where these monkeys were, right at the start, was this location. Now the T Rex is about to start poking and prodding at the raft. It is funny that they've managed to get, the classic Jurassic thing of like an upside down vehicle with a T Rex attacking it. This time it's the raft. Always happens. A vehicle has to be put upside down. And the T Rex lifts up the raft. Everyone complains, and it is a thing. It's like that raft should have popped. That should they. I know the T Rex is probably not biting down fully, but it's like that should have popped. That's my favorite T Rex roar. I love how frustrated it sounds when it sees her, and this shot of it wading through the river rapids after her. It's such a cool looking sequence. And then now we're at the point where it's about to burst through the rocks. Yeah, it just looks so good. Not the smartest of dinosaurs, this one. Could have walked around the rocks, I guess. It's really good acting from the child actress there. And then the raft pops up and it's completely untouched. It's like it would have been more fun if it was like sort of half deflating a little bit, and they like thought, well, we've still got to kind of use it, and maybe they sort of like I don't know, scrunch up a bit of the raft so it doesn't to try and trap the air, or they do something to like they use a half deflated, ripped up raft, but it's not sinking, or is it half sinking? I don't know, and they just use that and float down the river rather than it being completely perfect. Because then that would have added like an extra element of like danger. But that's what I would have done. And now we're into the Quetzalcoatl sequence, which is a really interesting um, dynamic sequence and completely fresh to a Jurassic film. This idea of abseiling down a cliff top to go to a nest in these sort of ancient ruins, very Indiana Jones esque ruins. We haven't had anything like this as far as I can tell from the Jurassic movies. This was like all fresh and new. And Zora. I just want to talk about Zora. She's like the female Owen, Owen Grady. She is very like not obviously in person, well, kind of in personality, but in some aspects. But she is like, you can tell that the producers, when they were coming up to do this film or like getting this film off the ground, they were talking to the writer and they're like, we want something like the female Owen, basically, because she reminds me very much like that. And this what gives me hope that in a future Jurassic film, Owen will return, because I do really love Owen. He's one of my favorite characters in the series. That Owen would return and then share the screen with Zora, because they are like really well matched in terms of their, on screen presence. And it'd be really fun to see them work together. And here we go. So I can't remember the name of this creature, this little green creature. I think, I don't know what to call it. I want to say Oranagnthus, but I could be completely wrong about that. I don't want to look it up because I'm in the middle of a commentary. But that little green creature we just saw, it's been and gone, that Duncan was looking at. If you look at the way that thing moves, how it walks on its knuckles, and how it's got this like stubby neck and a head and its body shape, I think that is another thing that has its DNA in the Distortus Rex. I think it's the Titanosaurus, the T Rex, and that thing. Um, because I know the Mutadons also walk on their knuckles as well, and the Quetzalcoatluses do. So maybe it's Quetzalcoatlus as well is a bit in there. But that little thing, whatever that little thing is, its body shape is just the Distortus Rex, but just tiny. And so I like to think that that thing is in there. Loomis is climbing into the nest. Gotta get that DNA sample from an egg. That's a direct line from this film. It was interesting watching a Jurassic film where they only name drop one of the previous characters. Alan Grant, because Loomis was, studied under Alan Grant. And, to have an entire cast of all new characters, oh, excuse me, with no, like, um, no Malcolm cameo, no Doctor Wu, nothing like that. No mention of them at all. It was interesting, and whether they would be able to pull it off, and I think they did. I think these characters, a lot of these characters, they feel like they just fit into that universe that we've had previously. There's nothing they do that makes them like stand out from that, if that makes sense. There's nothing the characters do where it's like, oh, that doesn't feel like a Jurassic Park character. They wouldn't do that. Doesn't seem like a person from that world. And here we see the Quetzalcoatlus. I love the design of this Quetzalcoatlus. It's so gnarly looking. And it's also nice to actually have the Quetzalcoatlus have a an extended sort of action sequence, because obviously it was in the previous film, the more paleo accurate Biosyn version, but it only like it was in the opening very briefly during 65 million years ago. We see it on the news nesting on the World Trade Center, but then it attacks Kayla Watt's plane for like a brief moment in a film, and then you don't see it anymore, really. And it's like it would have been cool to have had a proper sequence with that creature. And then this film comes along and goes, "Here you go, we're going to do it. We're going to give you a Quetzalcoatlus sequence with this sort of like genetically altered version, or just maybe a different subspecies of Quetzalcoatlus." I don't know what their intention was really. Um, and have a full on action sequence with them, and it's such a welcome change. And what I also like is it's not just copying like the Jurassic Park 3 Avery sequence or anything like that. You know, it's like a completely new dynamic to a pterosaur action sequence. You know, you've got these guys swinging down on their ropes as we're seeing here, where Loomis is now hanging on with the ropes. And you've got is it I forget his name now. What's his name? The French guy. The names aren't lingering in my head as long as they should do. Leclerc, that was it. Leclerc, you know, climbing up the side of the mountain with the Quetzalcoatlus hot on his tail. Like this shot here. It's like it's dynamically different to what we've seen before. And also it does do the um oh the wait, this is Leclerc's death, which is really horrendous. Ugh. It's horrible. It's just sliding in and up and down its mouth loads. You can see him going down the gullet. That has got to be the most horrendous death. That has to be horrible. Oh God. It's the idea of getting slid down that gullet and then just wherever you end up. It's just so horrendous when you think about it. But yes, this whole sequence with the rope, like obviously a dinosaur got them into this situation, but in like a classic Jurassic trope is you have sort of a dangerous sequence that doesn't involve like danger to the characters that doesn't involve a dinosaur. So this idea of the rope snapping and him falling down um, plays into that. And then here we see he splashes into the water, and we see these little red and black Compsognathus, which are really interesting because they look like poison dart frogs or something. They look like some sort of exotic frog. Like just don't touch those compies because you'll get ill and die just from touching them because their skin excretes venom or whatever. That's what they look like, and I love that kind of world building because even though they're just in it for that one tiny little sequence, just seeing them and seeing those colors, just your imagination opens up to what the genetic makeup and why they look so different to Compsognathus that we've seen before. You know, the in the book, the Compsognathus are, I want to say they're venomous, but they bite you, and you can get tired and delirious and start to feel woozy, and you go, oh, God, and then that makes you want to get all sleepy, and then you get sort of like paralyzed, and then they can just eat you while you're like paralyzed. That's what happens with John Hammond in the book, and there's very subtle hints to that in the Lost World movie when Dieter Stark keeps getting bitten, and that's why he, gets trips over a lot more, and he starts to get more like lethargic. And then when he climbs over the log, they just pound on him and they get him, jump on him. Sorry. And but in this film, they show them looking like these like tropical frogs, the poison arrow dart frog type thing, like I mentioned. It's kind of like that. It's like instead of them biting you, you just don't even touch those ones because you'll die if you even touch those compies. And now we're entering the sort of the third act of the movie, where the characters they've made it to the main hub of operations on Ile Saint Hubert, and I think aside from, if I've got my facts correct, aside from a Ankylosaurus, we're now all about the mutants. It's all the mutants now from here on out until the end of the film. So we see these giant, like tractor uh, type vehicles that are just left there. Shows they were still building and developing when the place got abandoned. I mean, there's cranes all in the background for God's sake. You see all these like construction cranes just left here. I do like that. It's like, yes, that they were still building on the island when they abandoned it. So um, kind of shows how sort of early into the operation that it was. I mean, I think if we work out the timeline of things, I think this island would have been in operation for Jurassic World or opened up somewhere between 2003 and 2008, somewhere like that. And there you go. They've met back up with the family, and Teresa wants to get revenge on old Krebby boy. Now, Krebs managed to find this pistol from a downed military helicopter earlier on in the film, and the thing about Krebs's character that I do like is he reminds me because I'm a big Thunderbirds fan. I like Captain Scarlet. That's a better example, like the old Jerry Anderson marionette series from the '60s. And Krebs in this movie just reminds me of a villain you would see in one of those shows. And I think that mainly is down to the fact that he looks like Captain Black, his face. But it's the fact that how he's like got this pistol and he's got his arm by his side, but he's raised it up and pointing it at them, just from his waist height. And he's got this briefcase tied to his wrist. He just comes across completely like a villain from a Jerry Anderson marionette series. Like that pose there where you stand there holding the pistol towards him and he's got the suitcase and he's got that white shirt on and his black hair. I might as well see strings coming off him leading up into the sky. But no, yeah, I do like that. But here we go. We're gonna get the song. In the night, woke up, boom, 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 and the lamp, but just take note of how the song just stops when the mutadons arrive. And there we go. There's the song. Wild Tech. And then here come the mutadons. No, not yet. Where are they? I think it's when Duncan walks. Here we go. Nope. There they are. So the first mutadon lands. I think there's only two mutadons in this sequence. There's the second one's landed as well. I think there's only two. I don't think there's any more. See, there's certain aspects of the mutadons designs I do like. I like the fact that, like, from a side profile, they kind of look like a pheasant, and I like the size of them. And I like they're a bit bigger than a raptor, and I like the fact that they sound like the Indoraptor at times. So obviously, being hybrids themselves and all that ties sort of into that. I like that you can see their spines sticking out the back, like sort of unnaturally bony at the back and that. But this whole sequence, really, they don't use their flying ability, which I don't think they should. Like I said previously, I don't think they should fly anyway. Because like we can see there when that one lands in the background, that might even be a third one actually. Um, they don't look like they should be able to fly at all, but they do, and they never use their flying to further the plot. Like they don't take a character away and drop them off somewhere, or take a character and eat them. There's nothing. They never use their flying for that. The only time the flying ever becomes part of the plot to an extent is when one flies off with a velociraptor to show how like dangerous they are. They can kill a velociraptor and they can fly away, so all better watch out kind of thing. However, um, this whole sequence would have been better if they were like two-headed raptors or raptors with like six limbs, messed up looking mutants, basically. It just would have been so much cooler and different. and play into the hybrid of play into like the failed hybrid genetic manipulation aspect this film was going for. Because yes, the mutadons aren't real dinosaurs; they're hybrid. Yes, they are freaky looking, but they also look like, if you just said, "Oh, there's a species of dinosaurs out there called the mutanodon or something like that," and you said that's a real species of dinosaur, and then you showed them a mutadon, no one would know the difference. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's I believe there's a dinosaur out there." There probably are dinosaurs out there that look like the mutadon. You know, it's like they don't look freaky enough. So, in my opinion, they should have had this whole sequence should have been kept the same, but just had really freaky looking dinosaurs like raptors, but with like two heads and extra limbs, or like one with like two tails and you know quills coming out of places where they shouldn't have been, and that that would have been way more interesting. I also don't like, from a design standpoint, I don't like the little beak on the end of the Mutadon's nose. But aside from that, yeah, this whole sequence in the garage here um, is obviously just a throwback to the kitchen sequence in Jurassic Park. It's fine, but it's like it's old hat at this point. But the most interesting part is, for me, I say the most, but one of the most interesting aspects of this whole Mutadon attack sequence. Also, the name Mutadon sucks. It's so crappy. Um, but I know it's like Jurassic World staff named it, so it's like they named it in universe. Um, yeah, like the way it's holding its hands here, and then when you see it walking a minute ago, it was walking on its knuckles. You know, you can see aspects of the Distortus, kind of the Quetzalcoatlus uh, aspect to the Distorters and these guys. Anyway, I'm about to talk over what I think is one of the most interesting aspects of this whole film. You might have heard me calling this Site C. Um, you know, obviously, famously, Isla Sorna is Site B from the Lost World and Jurassic Park 3. This map we're about to see right now, if you see in the top left-hand corner, it says Ile Saint Hubert. If you zoom in on that, it says Site C. So uh, this is the elusive Site C that fans have been speculating on for many years, has appeared in video games and stuff as a different island, but was never brought into like the major canon until this film. And then we learn it's this island in the Atlantic Ocean, and you know, and it's just nice to finally have that. I wish there was more Site C decals all over the place, but um, I thank the graphic artist who did that map. I think I did it on X. Oh, there's the Distortus. It's back again. Um, I thanked him for that tiny little Site C, just bit of text. I said because that that is doing so much heavy lifting in terms of its uh, helpfulness towards placing this island in the lore, if that makes sense. Do love this shot of the Mutadon looking up at the helicopter under the petrol station. It's such a gorgeous shot. Um, oh, and another thing I want to say, I love this vehicle. Just this vehicle is so cool looking. It's really awesome. Wasn't in the film enough. Should have been in the film more. But what was I saying? Yeah, that Site C. It's just tiny little detail like that, but it adds so much to the lore just knowing that this is Site C. So when this place was operational, Site B was obviously also operational. They wouldn't have called it Site C. Um, but it would have been operational in a sense that Mazrani Global were accessing it for. I have to say, this might be my favorite bit of animation of the Mutadon when it's like looking at the hole and then climbing down, like the way it like pounces around the hole, sniffing it is really cool. And here's Zora doing her best Owen Grady, sliding into the hole and then pulling out the pistol. Her and Owen will get on like a house on fire, I tell you. And now we're coming up to one of the most controversial aspects of this film for the fandom, uh, is where we get the full reveal of the Distortus. So we see Loomis is running here. He's desperate to try and get the attention of the helicopter before they fly away, the rescue helicopter. He's got to find some flares. So people don't know, like the word flare on the side of that box there, I believe, is CGI'd in. And that was thanks to a Jurassic Outpost interview with the guys who did the graphic designs, whose names escape me right now, but it's a very interesting watch. Anyway, we see the Distorters here now slowly emerging behind Loomis in the smoke. We still haven't had a full reveal of this creature yet. And this is such a cool reveal. There's no way around it. It's a really cool reveal. Really fun reveal as well. You know, the helicopter's coming in through the mist. And Loomis looks over and he's like, "Hey," to the helicopter. And then we see the Distortus has actually got that helicopter in its mouth. And it's like, it's like the most craziest thing in a Jurassic film we've seen yet. And it just lobs this helicopter away like it's nothing. And the controversial aspect of that is just how insanely big that Distortus is in that shot. But then in a few shots away from now, it seems to radically reduce in size. Now, there is one way of explaining that away, which would be that there's more than one Distortus. That there are more than one, because they do mention at the beginning of the film that this is like version 23 or something, 23 or 28, and whether those other versions are still around. But the fact that it looks identical, like really down to like every aspect of it, it's meant to be the same one. There's only meant to be one Distortus alive on this island. As far as we could tell, that was all the intention of the filmmakers. So it is just one of those goofs in the movie goofs where it looks really menacing and huge as it takes out this helicopter, and then it shrinks in size. And the filmmakers have said it in behind the scenes interviews. And we're about to see the Ankylosaurus. There it is. The final dinosaur, the final actual dinosaur we'll see in this film. Um, but yes, the filmmakers have said that like when they changed the scale, I think it was David Vickery in an interview which can be found on YouTube about he was being interviewed about this film, and he said like they brought up scale because of what we just discussed. And he said like, you know, filmmakers will change the scale of these dinosaurs and creatures all the time based on the emotions they want to get out of the audience, the emotions that it's meant to like show how the characters are reacting to them. So like the Distortus just looks absolutely menacing there and huge as it eats this helicopter, you know, holding it in one hand. Um, and Loomis is shocked because it's meant to play into the shock value of like, oh my god, look at the size of this thing and look what it's doing. But it is very jarring when you see how big it is when it's eating Krebs later, and like Krebs is massive in its hands. It's like the scale is so crazy different that really the only way you could explain it away is that there's two and they just look identical, but they're like one's big and one's small. Here we see the Mutadon trying to climb in through the top of the concrete, and that's obviously a nod to Hammond's bungalow in the novel where Malcolm is like on a bed being all delirious. on morphine, and there's like a raptor trying to claw into the ceiling above him, like above him. Sorry, when he's in the bed. Now Isabella has run out to the controls of this door, and Dolores is signaling the alarm because the Distortus is arriving right behind her. Now, the Distortus design as a whole, I didn't like it in the initial trailers. Like when they released the trailers, I was like, oh God, that's in a Jurassic film. That doesn't look like anything from a Jurassic film. But over time, I've warmed to it quite a bit. I still think the whole like knuckle walking with the two little T Rex arms, it's very. No, no, there's a meme online of like Western kaijus, and they like list like the Cloverfield monster and Pacific Rim monsters and the Distortus Rex and a few other things. It does look really cool up close though. Um, and I do love this shot when he's driving up to it. You see it roar at him and then smash the front of the car like that. That's really cool. But but yeah, the Distortus. I think the biggest problem with it is yeah, it just looks too. It looks too similar to a lot of monsters, like the Mutadons. Even another Gareth Edwards film, they have that knuckle walking pose with two little arms on its chest, and it's like we've seen that kind of design choice a million times. Whereas like the bulbous head, like the xenomorph type head with the T Rex little face is kind of new. I mean, look how big Krebs is to him there. Like it's about to bite him in half. You know, like it is. This Distortus is tiny compared to the one we saw eating the helicopter. It almost has to be two. Like, there's no way. Like, I know they intended it to be one, but it has to be two. There's no way. But then if it was two, why would you just have one tiny moment for like this kaiju sized one that's like absolutely massive? You know, it'd be such a tease. But anyway, the filmmakers are just trying to get across that the main of thing they're trying to get away from off this island is of these freak dinosaurs like the Distortus. Now, despite what I said about the Distortus' design, I do love the way they make it move, like how it pulled that tree up and threw it down, and it is just such a freaky looking creature compared to anything else we've ever had in the Jurassic series. That it does just stick out like a sore thumb, and I know that's the point. And the filmmakers were saying in the build up to Jurassic World Rebirth that, you know, you're going to see the Distortus and feel sorry for it. And it's like, there's none of that in this film. There's none feeling. There's no aspect of this film where you feel sorry for this thing. It's just a horrible freak. That's it should just be destroyed. But they should have really had a character discuss, you know, how they've survived, even though they are genetic freaks. Like, how has the Distortus stayed alive all these years when it's like this cumbersome and slow? You know, how has it survived this long? And see, we see Duncan leading the Distortus away. I do love the look of this. You know, the shots of it between the trees with the red flare going in and out. It does just look really alien. I don't mean alien as in the movies, although I do. I mean alien as in like just unnatural and weird. Now, Duncan mentioned previously in a scene that, you know, he's like, I hate the jungle. I don't want to die in the jungle. You're always being watched. The only place you can hide is underwater. And that was basically like foreshadowing how he escapes the Distortus in the scene, as he hides underwater. But notice here, so this is one of the things I was saying about Xavier's character. So we can see here and take note of this that Xavier is behind the wheel of the boat as the Distortus is coming. The dad is working the engine, and it's Xavier who drives the boat just away from the Distortus, which just almost grabbed them there. And the reason that's important is when we're introduced to Xavier's character at the beginning of the film, the dad is trying to get him to get behind the wheel of the boat, and he's just refusing to do it, and he's being really annoying about it. And then there's a shot which we're coming up to in a minute where it's like the next day or the morning, the sun's risen, and we see the dad is behind the wheel of the boat. And I remember there was a few people, and myself included, who were saying, wouldn't it have made more narrative sense to have Xavier behind the wheel of the boat to show an arc, to show that he, is willing to get behind the wheel of the boat and take control? And it was only, I think it was on my viewing before this one, before I recorded the commentary. I was watching this film a few weeks ago, and I did notice that actually Xavier is behind the wheel of the boat when the Distortus is there, and it lashes out at them. And it's the dad who's starting the engine. So it is kind of like a very subtle character arc with those two characters. I do wish, though, and I know it's like, on one hand, it might be spoon feeding, but it would have been nice to have had a bit more of an establishing shot that Xavier is behind the wheel, or in the shot that's coming up in a few seconds after they've rescued Duncan, of the dad behind the wheel, just have that be Xavier. Like, just have Xavier still be behind the wheel here, and then he looks over at the dad, and they give a knowing nod or something like that. See, here you go. You can see the dad is. I keep calling him the dad. What's his bloody name? These names of these characters. That's what happened with my failing old age as they keep introducing new characters. Ruben. Ruben's behind the wheel, and they should have had it be Xavier. That would have made more sense uh, from an art standpoint. However, they, to give them credit, they do have Xavier behind the wheel, like I said, when the Distortus attack. So I do like that there's that subtle little arc that does get paid off. And again, on the water-based theme, they are in a boat leaving the island. They entered the island on a boat and they leave on a boat. And this is where Zora decides to do something meaningful with her life rather than just go after the money. And there's this bit here with the dolphins where they see the dolphins, and it's a payoff to the little girl at the beginning of the film when they saw that green screen is so bad in that shot. That CGI, the CG dolphins are so bad. There's actually a wide shot of the boat when they're driving away where you see the dolphins. We're literally about to see the shot. Um, that would have been enough. You see all their smiling faces, and then we cut to the wide shot of them going off, and this one where you see the dolphins. That would have been enough. You'd be like, oh, they saw dolphins. That's great. And the CGI looks great. But they have that one shot where it's just looked really bad. And there's the credits. I just want to say quickly, like, one of the ways they could have made this film where you do feel sorry for the Distorters and had a bit more, because I know they wanted to stay away from the dino fights at the climax. They wanted to have a bit more of a subdued climax where it is literally like they're just trying to get away from this giant freak to get off the island, which I do appreciate. After the massive battles of Jurassic World Dominion, you go to this one. I like the sort of more subtle nature of it. But it would have been cool to have them get on the boat, and as they're escaping, the Distortus comes into the water to try and grab them, like it does, and then you see those Spinosauruses suddenly come out of the water, and it's not a dinosaur fight, as in like the Distortus is fighting them off and they're fighting it. It's like, no, it's more predator and prey, and you have the Spinosauruses just latch onto the Distortus and start to pull it underwater. And you have this moment where the characters turn around and look back, and the Distortus just looks at them in such a way that you're like, oh man, that's sad. And then you see it like get dragged under the water or whatever. And then they rescue Duncan and it plays out. And it's like the action sequences, they're navigating the rough waters as these huge dinosaurs are dragging this massive freak underwater to be killed. Um, and then that would have been a way of bringing the Spinosauruses back as well. No, I think that would have been a really fun way of ending it and paying off what they were promoting in the marketing materials. But yeah, the film, I mean, overall, you know, I really like it. I mean, I know there's loads of people out there who don't like this film, who thinks it shits all over the previous one. I don't agree with that. Um, I think the major issues I can basically count on one hand. Like when you boil it down, there's loads of little things, but when you boil it down, it's like five things. I'm going to try and do it right now. It's the name of the film shouldn't be Jurassic World Rebirth, should be Jurassic World Survival. It's the timeline of the lore. They should have, spent a bit more time actually fitting it into the timeline better because, the dinosaurs didn't return 32 years ago. And if the film is set in 2022 or 2027, no, sorry, 2025 or 2027, never use present day. That text present day, don't use that. Like basically the timeline and the text is all over the place. That text at the beginning of the film, you didn't even need it. You didn't even need that text, except for maybe. No, you didn't even need that. Like, you don't even need the 17 years ago. You could literally have just opened it up on the island, and when they talk about the park, it makes sense. So it's literally, yeah, the timeline and the its relationship to the lore is the biggest one for me. The title of the film, the Mutadons should have been mutated raptors, because the Mutadons don't really do anything that raptors already do, and I've heard no one really say much praise about the Mutadons. So you should have had two-headed raptors and stuff. Because there was like a shot in the trailer which wasn't in the final film of Loomis and Xavier. Xavier's like, please don't say they're raptors, and then Loomis is like, they're raptors. And I had visions in my head because the trailer originally showed this two-headed raptor of like you see these two raptor heads poking out of a bush, and then we have that line, you know, please don't say they're raptors. And then it walks out into the open, and those two raptor heads that we see poking out of the bushes are actually attached to one body. And then there's like this moment of like, oh, like, ugh, what is that kind of thing? Because in Jurassic World, we saw Wu had a two-headed snake that was alive in one of the tanks in his secret little lab at the park, and we saw the two-headed Mutadon and the two-headed Triceratops infant in the lab at the beginning of this film. So they should have had a living two-headed raptor, is what I'm saying, and one with like five limbs that are all like mangled and messed up, but it's still able to move and survive. Because they just would have been more interesting. Another problem, I'm counting them on my fingers. Five things. They're free. Number four, just change some of the Jurassic Park theme to other places in the movie because it just randomly comes in when they talk about getting shot at by guns. Um, and what would be the fifth one for me? Maybe make Loomis not so much like correct. Um, the fact that they're marine reptiles and not dinosaurs, and flying reptiles. That's one off the top of my head. Like make Loomis a bit more of a smarter character than he comes across in this film. Um, yeah, there we go. But that's Jurassic World Rebirth, and I really liked it, and I put it up there because I don't really like ranking these films. I always have this like running joke that like obviously the first Jurassic Park film is the best, and nothing's ever going to top that. It's the classic. It's the number one. You can't get any better than the first one. It was a lightning in the bottle, and they're never going to capture it again. Um, but Lost World, Jurassic World, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Jurassic World Dominion, the extended edition, which is the actual version of the film, and Jurassic World Rebirth for me are all, I hold them all equal. They all have their pros and their cons. They both bring things to the table I absolutely love, and they also do things that I'm like, "Oh, that's a bit annoying. You could have changed that." So, and they all have different tones and feelings to them. Jurassic Park 3 is the only one where I remember when I came out of that cinema as a kid, I was so disappointed. But then as I've gotten older, I've appreciated the film more in some aspects. I've obviously added to the lore of what happened in that film on a personal level when I worked on the franchise myself. Um, but also, I think films like Rebirth help in hindsight because, like I said, the Spinosaurus designs are different, so it adds to the mystery of Jurassic Park 3 and, like, oh, that Spinosaurus definitely was a genetic freak in itself. All that's laid out in the visuals. But there are three, not to go on a massive tangent about Jurassic Park 3, but there are three core foundational issues with Jurassic Park 3 that are so fundamentally broken that it does make the film bad, in my opinion, um, on a narrative level. But I've got videos all about that on my channel. Maybe I'll make one specifically about those three core foundational issues at some point in the future. But anyway, just as an extra note on the end of this commentary, I sent out a tweet or a post on X asking you guys if you'd like to ask me any questions at the end of this film, and I will answer a few of them right now, because why the hell not? So, Saurianbot, Capro the Auto on Twitter, on X, Twitter X. Would Distortus and Mutodon's existence be mentioned in Jurassic World via Wu and Masrani's conversation? Realistically, I know they didn't because those hybrids weren't thought of at that point of the film's release. It's a similar problem I have with this Scorpius Rex. If these things were um, that important to the background lore, why aren't they brought up? At the current times, they would be relevant. It just seems really short-sighted, in my opinion, and contradicts Jurassic World, but maybe you have your own ideas as to why. Well, let's look at the dialogue in Jurassic World. I'm going to pull this from memory. So he's like, uh, why would we need some dinosaur that can camouflage? We changed the DNA to adapt to a hot climate. Um, it's killed people, Henry. That's unfortunate. What purpose would we have for dinosaur? Blah blah blah. I'm going in loops here. But then he's like, I didn't ask for a monster. Um, I don't think they would. I don't think they would have mentioned it because the Simon Masrani was he wasn't really involved in anything. Like the whole point of his character is that he wasn't he was too aloof. He wasn't keeping tabs on actually where his money was going and what it was doing. That's how Hoskins was managed to slip through the net and start working on the Raptor squad stuff, but actually like subvert it and work with Wu in secret to work on the Indominus for their own project, in secret. So as for the creations on Site C, sorry, I think it plays into Jurassic World fine because he says we never asked for a monster. So, they were working on things and for either Wu or whatever. And I don't think that would have needed to have even been mentioned. We see the two-headed snake, like I said, and we see that, um, we know that this island, the research on Site C was sort of done in secret for the most part. And, um, they abandoned them, and Krebs mentions that they didn't want to euthanize them, so they just left them there. I don't think there's really any. I don't think it doesn't really contradict it. No, um, I don't see why they would be brought up. Like Masrani clearly wouldn't know about them, and whether Wu knew about them, like he's not going to talk about it, is he? Um, that's just their R&D. They'll probably have a whole subsection, another load of bureaucracy of people who run Site C who would actually know what's going on Site C, if that makes sense, like a need to know basis. This is another thing of why had that helicopter been at the beginning of the film, the dark green InGen one that we saw in Jurassic World, like the exact same one with the exact same serial number, we would go, it's Hoskins doing, like it's all Hoskins running InGen because he does. He's like the head of InGen security or whatever. So it would be like all him and Wu, and that would subtly answer the fact of like, oh, who knows about this island? But the film instead gives us this throwaway fan service helicopter, and we never see who gets off it. So there's no, it's all left up in the air. But I would say that, yeah, Wu would probably have known about this island and what they were doing, but their research, but it wasn't as useful as what he eventually would call art later on. Matt Davis asks, "Where do we go from here?" Simple question, Jackie boy. Um, I talked about it a lot in the commentary actually, so I'm going to leave that one. But and I've got my own ideas of where they could take it. I would like a mainland plot for the first half, and then go back to Site B to find a cure for um, something that's been killing off the dinosaurs. I like the idea of they find out that there's something's happened where the dinosaurs wouldn't have died off had they had this thing corrected in their genetics that could have survived this virus. Bring the DX into it, is what I'm saying. Carlos D. Miguel says, Ile Saint Hubert renting back to the 80s or during the Masrani era? I think it's both. I think Hammond bought the island, set up some fencing, was starting to clear some of the forest, and then was like, "Now I'm going to move all this operation to Costa Rica or whatever." Or maybe it was going simultaneously, like, or maybe he just had it as like a backup, and then when Masrani and InGen started back up, and they really got into gear. They were like, we need an R&D location. Hammond had Site C sort of not even built, so let's build this new research development place where we just experiment on anything and see what we come up with. Um, Matt Sickleclaw asks, how would you have rewritten Krebs' character? How would I have rewritten him? Hmm. Okay, here's my controversial take on this. Okay, I would have, if I was to rewrite Rebirth, it would, to rewrite Krebs' character, I would have had it so Loomis was actually a secret villain. Because I was speculating on this before the film came out, but it didn't happen. But I would have had it that him and Loomis were actually working together because they both wanted this cure to sell. But Loomis was playing this like, doddery guy because he wanted to earn the trust of the others. And I would have had it that Krebs actually was sort of pure of heart, as it were, and Loomis was actually the secret villain. That would have been fun, and have the betrayal be Loomis, who thinks, "Oh, I could make a load of money for my exhibition," and he's like evil Alan Grant, basically. And tries to steal the DNA at the end and goes away in the car, and he gets eaten by the Distortus. That's what I would have done, and had Krebs basically been a good guy, because everyone knew Krebs was going to be a villain. Like, oh yeah, it was so obviously signposted that he was the villain. It would have been nice to have been a change that, like, oh no, he's not the villain, and actually it was Loomis the whole time who was like looking at the. He was like trying to convince Zora to do not be so money hungry, but obviously he was just like, actually, there you go. There's how I rewrite the Krebs character. Krebs is the one who talks to Zora, and he's like, I know I'm getting this for Mr. Parker, whoever Mr. Parker is. I don't know if they're going to bring him into the future. Um, but whoever this Mr. Parker is, uh, it would have been nice to have had him go, Zora, I think I'm getting second thoughts. Like, we should open source this. I don't know if Mr. Parker is the right person to have this tech, even though I'm the one like coming in with the money and stuff, and have that sort of, that kind of inner conflict within him, and then have Loomis be the villain who tries to steal the DNA samples for himself because he wants the money to fund his dinosaur exhibition more and be rich. He's like just money hungry. There you go. Hope that answers it. I think that would have been a more interesting character development. Sam Phillips asks, why has the Lost World been retconned? Because they introduced Site C, Sam. Uh, Ashlish English Romancer. This could be further expanded upon into two questions. One, where do you think Gareth Edwards will take it from here? Well, that's easy. I don't know. Where would you personally take it from here? I've talked about that actually. Um, if you could add and delete and or change one scene from this movie, what would it be and why? Add, delete, or change one scene. I would add a scene where we actually no, I'll come back to that. I would change the scene where we're in Loomis's Neo Jurassic uh, exhibition to have a bit more dialogue about, you know, the Neo Jurassic dinosaurs and the sort of the history of it all. Because I'm a lore guy, I love all that. So I'd have had them, discuss, like what things like when he's talks about the Quetzalcoatlus, like we need the DNA from this, the Quetzalcoatlus, largest pterosaur. I'd have a line of dialogue like, we had two of them nesting here in New York a couple of years ago, but the city got rid of them, or something like that, which is in the film itself, but like reiterate it just to add into some of that lore and give it a bit more of a time frame. Um, change one scene, like I said, like I said in the commentary, I'd have character join the family who gets eaten by the T-Rex on the river. And if I could add a scene, oh, I told you, yeah, I've already talked about it. The Spinosaurus is taking down the Distortus. Where is it? T-Rex Ember asks, why Universal thought that the mutants and go back to an island was a good idea. I don't know why. And sorry, that reads like broken English, so I don't exactly know what you're asking me. Like, why do you think? Why do? Why Universal thought that the mutants and go back to an island was a good idea? Besides what Coop thought, I don't know, man. Um, Brandon Jones asked, "Will making free DNA open source lead to a revitalization of more genetic engineering / more climate tolerant dinosaurs?" One could hope. That'd be really cool. It is interesting that like where they could take the story next, but we all said that after Dominion, so who knows where they're going to take it next. Um, and Goji Master 1954 asks, would Rebirth have worked better if it took place on Sauna instead of the mutants and it was about the DX virus? Not necessarily. I think um I mean it could have worked on Sauna and it could have been like they just go, this is the R&D of Jurassic World, and we see basically the same things on Sauna. But obviously, visually with the island, it would have to be Sauna, look like Sauna, and it wouldn't look as it does in the film currently. So, I mean, it would have worked fine, but it wouldn't have been as sort of like fresh, if that makes sense. And there we go. That was the questions I have. So, yeah. Anyway, hope you have enjoyed listening to this commentary for Jurassic World Rebirth. I could sit here and talk all night about this series, as you all know. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say at this point, so I'll just say a good night, and I really hope you've enjoyed it. And thank you for all your questions, everyone. And I look forward to making more videos for you in the future. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.